I want to continue, I guess, talking about economics or capitalism or whatever, but focusing on minimum wage. I don't think it's very easy to see on the face of things when someone says, I'm going to increase minimum wage. It sounds like it's, wow, that's a good thing for the employee and a bad thing for the employer. Some people might not think so. But let's just take wages. What are wages? Let's break down what wages are, and then what I hope to show is how enforcing minimum wage laws could hurt everybody. Not just one, but Prince Christopher's stuck on your way of looking at the employee-employer relationship is like, I don't know, a teacher. My teacher's out to get me. You look at things as if your employer is this evil entity that's out to get you. And I'll even demonstrate that, this example, assuming the worst about the employer and assuming that people are, like, human nature really exists. Let's pretend like it does. I'm going to be the employee in this example. And I want as much money as I can get for my labor. I'm going to work at a job. Job's not important. In my example, I'm going to work and I want to try to get as much money as I can. I want to get the best deal for myself. And the employer, likewise, wants to get the best deal for himself. And once upon a time, a year ago, let's say, we made this deal. And the deal was I would work for $100 a week. Love these round numbers. I like to use round numbers. It makes everybody can follow along much easier. So $100 a week. My boss is paying me that, and we're all happy. I'm doing my work. I'm not getting any raise or anything. It's been the same $100 a week for a year. Then my employer finds out something about me, that I like to drink beer. And what I've been doing for this past year is every Friday I go down to the liquor store and I buy me a case of beer for the weekend. And over the weekend I drink that case of beer, and that case of beer costs me $10. So really what I've been working for is $90 in a case of beer. I'm going to keep doing the case of beer. I love my beer. So my employer comes and says, you know, I realize that you've been going out and buying this case of beer every week. And I say, wait a minute, what is that of any business of yours? Oh, hold on now, my employer says. I'm prepared to offer you $95 and a case of beer. And I thought about that and I'm like, I started adding up on my fingers. $95 and a case of beer. So he's going to decrease my wages by $5. But he's going to compensate me with a case of beer that would have cost me $10 if I went and purchased it at the liquor store. And I said, is it going to be old style? Because that's the only kind of beer I drink. It'll be old style, all right, he says. I thought there might be a catch, but I decided to go for it. So, got my $95 and a case of beer and went home. Been doing that for a couple of weeks. What I didn't know in this situation, my boss was getting the beer for $1 a case. So, this was a mutually beneficial situation. My boss was happier. He only had to pay me $96 a week, really, because he's paying $1 for the beer. And $95 cash. I was getting $95 plus a case of beer. So I had $5 more than I would have had he kept giving me the $100 a week. Now, what would happen if the government stepped in at this point and said, got to pay him $100 a week? $100 is minimum wage for 1 week's labor. My boss is going to say, okay, we're back to where we were before. Wages just went up to $100. So much for the beer. Now, you might think that this is a stupid example. No employer is going to give you beer. But compensation can come in many ways. Wages is one way. There's also benefits. An example of a benefit might be beer, like in my example. But another example could be, healthcare insurance or on-the-job training. Let's just look at healthcare for a minute. My employer might be able to get health insurance at a better rate than I could if I went and tried to get it on my own, which is the reason some employers provide their employees with healthcare insurance. They don't care how they're compensating me. If they can get a better deal, if they could draw me in and pay my wages less, plus providing me with healthcare coverage, and I looked at that and thought, well, if I went and bought it on my own, I would have to pay more. So I would take a cut in wages to get that healthcare benefits from my employer, as long as it worked out in my favor. And it could happen to where it would work out in my employer's favor as well. But when the government steps in and forces one of those ways of compensation to a certain level, like minimum wage, the flexibility of the employer has been limited. He now has to give you, of that pie of compensation, one chunk of that, that's the chunk. The wages chunk has to be at a certain fixed cost, at least a minimum fixed. There might be people that would work, let's say a couple that's married. A guy has a good job, but his current employer doesn't offer healthcare insurance, and they have him and his wife have a little kid. If she could go work at a store and get paid $1 an hour, but that employer would kick in full healthcare coverage for her and her family, she'd be better off, he'd be better off, they'd all be better off. But you won't find that now, or at least as prevalent as it would be if we were to get rid of the minimum wage. Employers would be much more able to find different flexible ways to pay their employees. So, now Christopher, if you're watching this, don't come on and make a video and say, you can't tell me that somebody's going to be able to get a case of beer for $1. It just ain't happening. That's not the point here. Rewind and watch it again, and just kidding, man. So I'm hoping that this makes sense to whoever's watching it. The minimum wage is bad. I'll end for now. At least I didn't have to make 3 of these. Talk to you later.